Hello and welcome to the Reconnect podcast, a weekly show sponsored by the Anasazi Foundation and powered by Sturry Studios. I'm Ganel-Lyn Condie, your host. I'm so grateful you've joined us, where we have conversations to help you strengthen your most important relationships and reconnect with those that matter most. Hi, I'm Ganel-Lyn Condie. Welcome to the Reconnect podcast. We are here at the Sturry Studios. We're grateful for Anasazi Foundation for sponsoring this podcast, and I'm excited to share a quick message with you today. When we don't have a guest, I have the opportunity to just share a thought or two on what is on my heart. And so at the time of this taping, I don't think this message is time sensitive, but within context, so you understand, I just recently read online where Meghan Markle of the royal family, Harry's wife, had just finished a documentary, a tour of Africa where they had filmmakers following them around. And the reporter asked specifically about her quality of life and asked about how things were going with, marriage, royal family, British tabloids, new baby. And she was very honest and open that things had been hard, that she was trying to figure things out, and that being a royal hasn't been easy. And as you can imagine, you leave America, you move to a different country, you have the tabloids following you around, you're newly married, you have in-laws around, and you have a new baby. I think for any of us on the planet, those are some risk factors that can be triggering. And she was honest that she was trying to navigate this new life and that she felt like things were a little hard. And she was honest and open, and then it was the online media attacks that came back and criticizing her. What does she have to complain about? She's one of the royals. Like, there's people out in the world that have no money and no homes and have real struggles and disease and poverty and all of that. And the vitriol and the anger and the online bullying and the criticism of her in a way that was saying, how dare you say things are hard? You have no right to say things are hard because you live in a castle and you are a princess. And it got me thinking about the work that I am engaged in and many others are within the mental health field with regards to connection and healing and helping the suicide rates come down. And then if you juxtapose what's happening in the world online and the way in which we are talking about mental health, it's like the new buzzword. We're all talking about suicide prevention. It's the new buzzword. We're all talking about connection and being authentic. But then when someone in the public is honest with their feelings and saying, I'm having a hard time, the attacks that came to Meghan. Now, I'm not here to discuss whether or not Britain has a responsibility in Africa and what it means to be part of the royal family and what it means to be a public figure. All I would like to share with you is some thoughts on the fact that we all are asking, what can we do when there's a suicide in our local schools or in our communities, or when we have a struggle within our own families? Everyone is up in arms right now wondering, what can we do? How can we help? And I would like to suggest today on this episode, the one thing we can start today and do. Whether you're a mental health professional, whether you work in the schools, whether you're a coach, whether you're a royal, whether you're a movie star, whether you're a professional athlete, whether you're a politician. I don't care what age you are, what demographic you're in. I don't care where we're at. There is something that we all can start today to do. And to me, it is a great first step in changing the mental health wellness of all of us. And that is, in light of what has just played out on social media with Meghan Markle, it is creating safety around the vulnerability that we all need. And that is it safe in our families, in our schools, in our workplaces, in our churches, on the sports arena field to say, I'm having a hard time. If it's not okay, then we're at greater risk. Is it something that we can do as a community, whether it's online or in person, to say it is a safe zone around me or on my Facebook page or on my Twitter wall to express struggle and say, I'm not doing okay. I'm having a hard time. And instead of being afraid of doing that, we start making it okay. And we all start more honestly and regularly communicating what's really going on in our hearts. I think tends to be a couple of groups of people. There's the group of people that say, don't ask me, I'm fine. And every time you ask them, they say, I'm fine, even if they're struggling inside. I hope for that group of people, if you fall into that category, you have someone you feel safe telling the truth to. That there's at least one other person that you are willing to say, no, I'm not doing great. I am struggling, whether it's a therapist, whether it's your partner, whether it's a parent, whether it's a best friend. There's another group of people that I think fall into the majority of us, where we're doing okay, but we have stuff that we're struggling with, and we don't want to be a burden. We don't want to bring up how hard things are sometimes because we're just going to soldier through it. And that works for a while. And then I think specifically, I'm using Meghan Markle because she's a public figure and it's easy to kind of see what changes have happened in her life. She's moved, she's living in a new place, she's married, she's had a baby, and she's public. She has reporters following her around all the time. So any of those changes or transitions for any of us would be enough to trigger mental health concerns and needs. And so, but I think all of us struggle with grief and loss and transition in our lives at some period of time. And yet we're not always feeling like we have permission to say, it's not working for me. Today it's hard. Then there's this other group of people where I think sometimes we feel like no matter who they are and no matter what's happening in their life and no matter what conversation you have with them, you get a sense that for them everything is hard all the time. And they're never positive. So I think these other two groups of people maybe hold back because we don't want to appear to be the complainers, the Eeyores, the victims of the world. I'm not talking about that group. I'm talking about this middle group and this other group here. We are at a high risk if we aren't creating a space in our own lives to say, I'm not okay. But we all can do something as a community to change the mental health level as a community. When we say, when you're with me, when you're on my page, when you're around me, it is safe to say, I'm not okay. And I'm having a hard time. That step alone. And when we hear that there's this attack that happens on Meghan, or attack that happens at school because someone is feeling vulnerable and everyone's gossiping and talking bad, we can also teach our kids to stand up and say, you know what? We have no idea what's happening in their life. Maybe they are having a hard time. Maybe that's not something hard for you. Or changing the subject. When we change the conversation against this attack, critical, gossipy, online bullying pattern, we are doing something to make the world a safer place. And so my invitation to us, all of us as a human family, and here specifically at the Reconnect podcast, is that we do one thing to create that safety within our homes and our communities and within our sphere of reach. That we either post or share or start a conversation at the dinner table or start a conversation in the break room today at work where you say, hey, you know what? I've noticed you seem to be a little down. Is everything going okay in your life? I hope you know it's safe to share with me if things are going more difficult in your life right now. And I think we just sometimes need to give permission to the people standing next to us, the people we live with, the people we work with, to say it's okay. Oftentimes we hold back because we don't want to overwhelm, we don't want to burden, we know other people are busy. I just had a conversation today where we talked about this exact thing, that this individual is struggling and I've got my struggles, and sometimes when there's that void of communication, then we can misinterpret what's going on. And I've come to know that every person on this planet is walking around with something on their hearts, something that's a hard burden, something that's a struggle, something that they can't fix, that's out of their control, that's keeping them awake at night. And maybe you're in a season of life where things are going pretty good and it's fine. Great. Then you get to be one of the helpers right now. Maybe you can say a prayer that God will show you, or open a conversation with someone that needs a listening ear. But maybe you're like many, you're actually going through that hard time right now and you're afraid. You're afraid to admit to anyone that things aren't easy. I hope that this message today gives you some permission. And then I think collectively, I'm just going to do a call action that we stop with the online vitriol bullying. That I know public figures are kind of signing up for it at some level, but I think there's so much we can do with our time and with our communication that we all have the opportunity to be uplifting. Instead, we hide behind our screens and we feel like we can comment on and like almost consume other people's lives and comment on what we think they should be doing, how they should be dressing, how they should be living. And then when they stand up and say something that may be vulnerable, we attack. And I hope that even if one listener today changes their approach or affects a change because they have a conversation or they post something today that invites that kindness to come to the surface, that is contagious. Just like when everyone's in a room and you're all complaining, that is contagious. Have you ever been in a dinner party or you're at a gathering of some sort? One person starts to go off on something they read or something they think, and then everyone joins in. The opposite is also true. Kindness is contagious as well. And so I hope that I did notice that as the day progressed yesterday, that there was new hashtags, I love Meghan, and people were trying to show their support to Meghan Markle because they saw this online bullying that was happening. But I hope that we can all, as a community here, be a part of more kindness and permission to be vulnerable. To me, that is the secret to connection. Is first of all, you have to be willing to say, I'm not doing okay. And then secondly, we have to be a part of the conversation that is uplifting, that turns the light up so the dark gets dimmer. That we start to have opportunities and interactions that foster connection. And that starts with us. And it's not something out there that's going to get fixed by the President of the United States or Hollywood. It can start within our own neighborhoods and our own families and our own communities today. It's a simple act to say you're safe not being okay here with me. And there's a huge relief when you share with someone that you're not doing well and they validate that. So if you're listening today and you're having a hard time, I validate that you're a human being and we all struggle. And I hope that we can do more to create that connection so that there's bridges over the hard times, so that you're not feeling so isolated, so that I'm not telling myself a story that I'm alone, and that I believe that there's kindness out there in the world, and that we'll work together to create that, because I believe that the butterfly effect is real, that when one person is kind, it filters out. And when one person says, you're safe with me, that filters out. And when one person validates someone else, that changes the life, then that trickles out to the next person that person interacts with. So thank you again for joining me today here at the Reconnect podcast. I'm grateful for this platform. I'm grateful for the conversations that we have here at this table. I'm grateful for the guests that come here and share their life experiences and talk openly and vulnerably about hard times in their lives. I'm grateful for the support that has been shown to this podcast and the sharing that's happened in the last year. And I hope that you will continue to share these episodes with those that come to your mind and heart, because I believe that with all this technology, we can have conversations now all the time just with our little earbuds, right? And we do that through the podcasting that's out there. And I know there's a lot of podcasts out there for you to choose from. And so thank you for those that have join this family, subscribe to this channel, and thank you for the efforts you're doing to create connection in your own life and to circle back and create reconnection when you feel that disconnection show up in your mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual well-being. When you start to see that those wells are starting to get low, I hope that this is a place that you come to fill them up. And thank you again for joining me. Thank you, Anasazi Foundation. And I'm Ganel-Lyn Condie here at the Reconnect podcast.
Thank you for listening to the Reconnect podcast, presented by Anasazi Foundation. Are you worried about your teenager? Are they struggling with depression, low self-esteem, anger, drugs, or suicidal thoughts and feelings? If so, Anasazi Foundation can help. Anasazi is a wilderness therapy program for at-risk youth, and our mission is to help turn hearts homeward. To learn more about us, please visit anasazi.org. If you liked this show, please be sure to subscribe and leave us a review. Thank you again.